Okay. Well, as everybody's starting to log in, welcome this afternoon to our next Lunch and Learn. We are very, very happy to have with us HEB today. They're nutritionists with HEB to help talk to us a little bit about their nutrition services and healthy tips for eating healthy on a budget. So this afternoon, we want to welcome Karina from HEB. And as always, if you will, please put your name and organization in the chat. And at any time, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A section of the webinar. So Karina, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Raina. Good afternoon to everybody. I hope everybody is having a great Friday and an awesome lunch. Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of your day today and just kind of learn a little bit more about how HEB can help support you guys in terms of information for your patients, for family members, anybody who is suffering from diabetes, and what we can do to help increase that information to them. So like Raina said, I work for HEB. I am the border and Gulf area regional ops lead. I'm stationed in Laredo, however. So I know you primarily work with patients and clients in the Rio Grande Valley, but that's also the region that I focus on as well. So anything that we can do to help support you and your patients and your clients, we are happy to help. So today we are going to be talking a little bit about healthy tips on a budget, because we know that, you know, we're trying to eat the healthiest that we can. We've come from, you know, being at home, and this COVID pandemic has really allowed us to think deeper into our health. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're not breaking our budgets and we're not kind of just spending a whole lot of money on this healthy eating effort, right? So we want to make sure that we give you enough information to do that in a budget conscious way. So I'm going to see if I can, there we go. Our objectives for today are just the fundamentals of a healthy diet. And I know most of you are clinicians. Most of you have heard this information before on My Plate and nutrition labels. But as I was telling Raina earlier, there's always something new to learn with nutrition. There's always new questions coming up within the community. So if you have anything like that you'd like to get answered today, please put it on the chat and I'd be happy to give you some more information at the end. We will talk about taking inventory of your grocery at home or your pantry at home and trying to plan for those meals so that we don't spend or waste food when we don't have to. We'll talk about produce and how to save within that area of food, as well as protein, as well as whole grains and dairy. We will also talk about meals with bulking foods and how to save with unit prices, or what are unit prices basically, and how to save more money when we buy a little bit larger of a container that sometimes ends up being just a bit cheaper. So the next thing that I want to talk about, or that I want to make sure that we keep in mind, is that we follow a My Plate model. So we've all seen the My Plate. It used to be a pyramid, but the My Plate model now tells us that we want to focus on half of our plate for fruits and vegetables. This also applies for our grocery cart. So when we're out shopping at our grocery store, we want to make sure that half of that grocery cart is filled with fruits and veggies. 1/4 of our plate, or 1/4 of our cart, we want to make sure it's lean protein, and as well as whole grains, 1/4 of that. And our dairy, we want to make sure that it's low fat dairy. So we'll dig deeper into what each of these mean. Again, if you have any questions, please put it on the chat and we will definitely talk about that further. So let's go into the nutrition label. A lot of people, especially our patients here at HEB, are very intimidated about the nutrition label because it has so much information. And unfortunately, if you see here the nutrition label on my screen, the calories are big and bold. And so that tells the consumer or the patient, when they're reading this food nutrition label, that calories tend to be the most important thing on this label. I always try to tell them that although it's the biggest thing, it's not the only thing that we have to focus on. There's plenty of other information on nutrients like fat, protein, sugars, fiber. All these things are important. And we want to make sure that we know what we're looking for, especially for patients who have diabetes or any other condition, heart disease and things like that. We want to make sure that they know what each of these components mean and what they're looking for, because for a diabetic patient, what they're looking for a nutrition label can look very differently than somebody who is just simply trying to lose weight. And so trying to make sure that we give them this information in the most complete and simple way possible so that they can understand it. This is just the general information we try to give our patients, but when they're diabetics, we try to get them to focus on increasing their fiber intake, lowering that sugars, specifically the added sugars, but at the same time, not neglecting the information on fat, simply because when we focus so much on carbohydrates and sugars, we tend to forget about the fat, which we also have to take care of that heart. And we tell them that although the first thing that we look at is carbohydrates and sugars as a diabetic, we have to be mindful of that protein that's going to help us keep us full, and that fat that can also help us keep full. But we have to make sure that we're not choosing the saturated fat versus the unsaturated fat. And so we go a little bit deeper into this nutrition label just to make sure that the patient and the consumer understands that the whole label is important and will give us valuable information. So how do we eat healthy at home? What do we start doing to kind of stay within our budget, but at the same time, make sure that we're eating quality nutrients and quality food? I can tell you from my experience with the pandemic, we tried to use as much of the food that we already had in our pantry, in our refrigerator, in our freezer. We tried to utilize that food the quickest, so that when we brought in new food, it wasn't just kind of staying there and then we had to end up throwing it away because it would go bad. So one of the important things whenever we talk about eating on a budget with our patients is that you take inventory of your pantry and of your refrigerator and freezer to know what you have available, what things you can utilize already, so you can use those resources to create different recipes or even create the same recipes. But sometimes we forget what we have in the freezer because we kind of put it all the way in the back. And when we bring in new food, you say, oh, you know what, I already had chicken breast and I thought I didn't, so I bought some more chicken breast, and now you have plentiful or plenty of chicken breast that you've got to utilize, because otherwise it just goes bad, or you end up eating the same thing over and over again. So great resources that you can use, or a patient can use, is HEB.com recipes. Sometimes we get that taste fatigue, and so we end up just not knowing what to do with all that chicken. We love arroz con pollo, we love the mole, we love caldo de pollo, but it ends up being like those 3 recipes over and over again. So HEB.com, Budget Bites, Cooking Light, and Kosher.com are great resources to use to kind of go in there and say, okay, what else can I prepare with chicken? What other flavors can I bring into my home with ingredients that I probably already have in the pantry or in the refrigerator? So these are great resources to share with your patients or share with your community for sure. So I talked about how we, during the pandemic, learned to plan a lot of these meals to save some more money. We want to make sure that we're using our current inventory. And also what we tried to do to stay organized with these things was we had a little tablet or a little booklet. It had tear out sheets. And it had a magnet in the back. So we put it on the refrigerator with a pen next to it. So the entire family, whenever they would finish, let's just say the packet of cheese or the half gallon of milk, that particular person in our family would just kind of say, you know what, write down, we're missing milk or we're missing cereal. And so it kind of became like this running list. So by the time that whoever ended up going to the grocery store that week or that weekend already had the list going. And so it wasn't like this big task to sit there and say, okay, what do we need? Go through everything. You already have a running list of what is pending. So it becomes easier to plan these things whenever it gets time to go to the grocery store. Another great way to plan this out is to use your HEB app. Most of the time, curbside pickup and delivery became super popular during the pandemic. I personally just love to go to the grocery store. So it was like this whole trip to the grocery store, put your mask on and you know, you're sanitized and everything. But for me, it was just kind of like just a trip to the grocery store. I already had my list and it was just, it was always on a Sunday. And so I would go super early and made it just kind of an enjoyable trip rather than, you know, a task that we had to do. So using your HEB app is also a way to organize this information and make sure that we don't miss anything. You can order curbside, you can order delivery, or you can create that list on your app and just use it whenever you're at the grocery store. So let me see, here we go. So how do we save money on produce? So produce ends up being something that we want to make sure that we are cutting cost in, because produce tends to be really cheap whenever we buy the correct one, right? So for example, here, we want to make sure that when you're trying to cut cost and eating on a budget, a green cabbage can be 60 cents a pound versus the already shredded packet of the cabbage can be $3.36 per pound. So using that opportunity to do the labor, to wash, to cut, to prep it yourself at home can be an activity that you can do on the weekends, either with your family, or just kind of take a day on Sunday, put on a podcast, put on some music, and in the morning start washing and prepping all of this produce that you've bought whole, but you know, you're actually doing the labor, you're actually doing the cutting and washing at home, so you're able to save some money there. It does say to eat more perishable items first. For example, your lettuce, your berries, all those things that are going to be going bad a lot faster. You want to make sure that you consume those first and more quickly. You can freeze them, or you can buy them frozen already. But again, it goes back to cutting costs. You can prep it, wash it, put it in little Ziploc bags and freeze it yourself. So we also tend to recommend to shop in season for produce. Typically those in season fresh fruits and vegetables are going to be cheaper because there's a lot more product to distribute, right? There's no cost in shipping or importing associated with it because they're in season. And so some fruits and veggies that are in season for this particular month or for this quarter are spinach, kale, strawberries, cauliflower, sweet potatoes, tomatoes. We can definitely find recipes on that HEB.com or any other resource that I shared previously with these types of veggies and fruits that you can kind of get creative with or tell your patients to get creative with. And they can at the same time save money because all this produce is in season currently. So what about canned foods? We always get questions about which is better, fresh, canned, frozen. Which one do I do? I'm not sure if canned is healthy, but at the same time, canned is convenient and sometimes even cheaper. And so we always tend to recommend whatever method, frozen, canned, or fresh, is most convenient for the patient. If it ends up being canned foods, we do tell them, you know what, you just want to be careful. We want to make sure that it doesn't have added sugar, added sodium, or if it's a canned fruit, we want to make sure that it's not fruit that is in syrup, because of course we know that that's going to add extra sugar. So always making sure that it's in fruit juice, make sure that it doesn't have salt added. And if you can't find no salt added veggies or sauces, you can do or opt for a low sodium. What we tend to recommend also is if it's, for example, beans or corn that you couldn't find no salt added, try to open the can, run it under some water to kind of get that salt to wash away just a little bit. And that's how you can cut a little bit of that salt in the canned fruits and veggies. So it's definitely an option. We never say you can't have them because we know it's convenient and it's cheap, especially for people who live in food deserts. Frozen foods, I talked a little bit about that as well. They're convenient because they're not going to be foods that are going to go bad if you buy them fresh. So cauliflower and broccoli and berries, when you buy them frozen, you tend to have a little bit more time to use them, later on in the week or maybe the following week after purchasing. So it's always a good way to add veggies into your meals or into the meals, either in a smoothie in the morning or on a sheet pan in the oven for lunch or dinner. Frozen foods are always a good way to kind of add that nutrient, add that bulk to the meals without having to use them right away and having to plan for those meals early in the week. So let's talk a little bit about unit prices. So unit prices, we want to make sure that we tell consumers and patients to stay aware of those things whenever they're shopping and planning healthy meals on a budget. Of course, we know that the total price of that particular item divided by the size of it is going to give you the unit price. So the unit price is almost always reported in either an ounce or a pint or that single unit of measurement of the product. Often the larger sizes of these products are going to be a bit cheaper because you get a bigger amount for the price that you're paying. So I have a few examples in the next slide so we can discuss them and you can use that information when shopping. So for example, this H-E-B Greek yogurt. The one on the left side is the vanilla yogurt. It's a 5.3 ounce little cup. Well, that's 91 cents each, and it's about 18 cents an ounce. However, if a family needs and consumes this Greek yogurt pretty often, perhaps the larger size, the 32 ounce size of this same yogurt is going to be a little more budget friendly for them and for their families. Why? Because it's a larger size, and however, they tend to see $4.10 for this 32 ounce yogurt. However, the unit price tends to be a bit cheaper because it's only 13 cents per ounce in this container versus 18 cents per ounce in the container that's the 5.3 ounces. So allowing these families to look and always explore the information on the unit price is going to be a little more beneficial to them when they're trying to make decisions at the grocery store versus which one is going to be cheaper and which one is going to be better for my family and my budget. Another example is Cheerios. This cereal, for example, on the left side, you'll see the 1.3 ounce little cup, the single serving cup of the Cheerios. This one is $1.03 each, which is about 80 cents an ounce. The middle one is the 12 ounce regular box. This one is $3.59 each, but it's 30 cents an ounce. Now, the last one, the family size on the right side, that one's the 18 ounce box. Also $3.75, but the unit price is only 21 cents an ounce. And so if it's a family of, 5 who have mom, dad, and the 3 children, and these children go through cereal pretty often, every morning before school or whatever the case may be, typically the family size is going to be a better option for them simply because you get the 21 cents per ounce in that box versus the single serving for 80 cents an ounce. And so there's a big difference there in the unit price. Okay, so let's explore more on some meatless options. So a lot of the times we hear that Americans have no problem eating protein, especially animal protein, especially our Latinos in the South Texas region. Why? Because we love carne asada. We love to cook out. We love to get together with family. It's just really something that brings us joy. So most of the time it's red meat, it's chicken that's present in those family gatherings, but we tend to forget that we can also get protein from foods like beans, soy products, legumes, nuts, seeds, things like that can be also an option for patients who are trying to reduce their meat intake, their red meat intake, because sometimes we know that diabetes comes in conjunction with heart disease. So there are some patients that need to be doing both at the same time. So offering, of course, foods and options that are considered meatless or plant-based is also something good that they can have. We also get a lot of questions about how many eggs can I have? I'm trying to control my cholesterol and I'm not sure if I can have eggs every morning. Well, we tend to tell them that, you know, unless you're going to have an extraordinary amount of eggs in the morning consistently throughout the week, 1 to 2 eggs in the morning should be fine for you to have for breakfast. You can pair it with a couple of veggies, maybe some sweet potato. So a lot of people, especially in the South Texas region, tend to be afraid to include egg into their meals, and they'll start doing egg whites, which is not a problem. They can do the egg whites, but sometimes patients do miss that yolk. And we tend to tell them that it's okay, just definitely to practice portion control and make sure that we're not doing too much of it too often. So here are a few examples of those meatless meals or meatless items: the eggs, the beans, the lentils. If you see here at the very top right-hand corner, you'll see a can of beans that says no salt added. That red strip in the top right under the word black says no salt added. And so those are the types of foods that we're looking for and options that we're looking for when we're trying to reduce the sodium in canned foods. But of course, there's options like quinoa, there's tofu, as other plant-based options they can include in their diet. Other ways to extend your meals. A lot of the times, patients, whenever they say you've got to cut on your, you've got to start making changes to your diet and eat a little healthier, they tend to kind of just close out all other options and tend to eat chicken and veggies, fish and veggies, fish and white rice, and it ends there. There's really no variety. It tends to be difficult to them because they tend to develop taste fatigue and they get bored of their meals. So a way to extend their meals and add more nutrients, and especially to add more fiber to help them keep full, is going to be to add mushrooms to their stir fry. They could do oatmeal with their smoothies. They can, snack on prunes. They can do whole grains like quinoa. Actually, this morning, one of my colleagues who is also a Latina said, you know what, I recently tried quinoa with chicken. So instead of arroz con pollo, she tried arroz con quinoa. And it ended up being something that she really enjoyed. And so adding that fiber into the, very famous Latino dish of arroz con pollo, if you use quinoa instead, you increase the fiber, you increase the protein, but at the same time, you're still having that flavor of the arroz con pollo, or the flavor of now quinoa with pollo, that Latinos tend to look for whenever they're making changes to their diet. So in closing, we want to make sure that we tell our patients and tell our diabetic community, especially in the Latino areas, that we want to be mindful of the foods that we're having to control our disease state. However, this doesn't mean that you can no longer have foods that are just so dear to our culture. So we want to make sure that we make them aware of a My Plate model, of the nutrition labels, and other information about nutrients that this provides. At the same time, because we're on a budget most of the time, we want to make sure that we're not letting any food go to waste. We're using our resources and ingredients that we have at home before we go and buy out, buy everything new all over again, and then realize that we had food to use at home prior to going to the store. We want to make sure that we pick produce that's in season. We pick produce that's whole, and we use a little bit of our weekend time to wash and cut and prepare that produce to use throughout the week. We also want to make sure that we make them mindful of unit prices and check that always when they're trying to decide whether the small single size is the most convenient for them, or maybe the larger bulk size is going to be more of a cost saving effort for them. We want to make them mindful of plant-based proteins like the legumes, like the nuts, the seeds are going to be very good options for increased fiber and protein. And then lastly, to extend your meals with these types of foods to make sure that we, again, add extra nutrients and add extra ways to help our patients stay full, because a lot of the times they worry about, okay, I'm going to make some changes to my diet, but I don't want to be hungry all the time. So these are some ways that they can definitely do that with foods. But if they have further questions, please refer them to us. We are happy to help in any region that your patient or clients are. We have dietitians who are bilingual throughout the border region and the Gulf area. But certainly, if you have any questions, any concerns, you can reach out to Joanne. She is our medical sales representative for the border region, or me. I am, like I said, their operational lead for our region as well. But any dietitian would be happy to help you all and answer some questions for you. So I'll leave that. And Reina, please let me know if there have been any questions throughout my presentation.
Absolutely. So far we have not had any questions. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A section. Karina, thank you so much for today's information. This has been absolutely wonderful. It's great information, and we are so happy that HEB has a program like this to help us all out. You know, talking about the food fatigue, that is a huge thing, and trying to find those flavors again, it's a really big issue. So thank you for bringing that up today.
Yeah, for sure. I know, I hear it always from our patients, and I experience it as well. So I know it happens, and definitely finding options to provide that to our patients is something, some sort of a relief, like somebody is dealing with the same issues I'm dealing. And so we always want to make sure that we show that to them and that we're here to help.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Well, I'm not seeing any questions. So Karina, thank you again for joining us, and everyone that has joined us today, thank you too for taking the time to be with us. If you have any questions, oh wait, we do have a question. I'm sorry. Do you have any budget tips for purchasing milk?
For purchasing milk, to be honest, what we tend to recommend, especially for diabetic patients, is we want to make sure that first and foremost, that's a quality and nutritious milk for the patient. So making sure that we increase the protein in that milk. Most of the time, the Mutopia milk comes in increased protein and low sugar for that patient, but it comes in a half gallon. However, talking back to the unit prices, if you want to go for something that's in a gallon, you just want to make sure that you do a low fat option. So the 1% or the fat free in the gallon, if you want to do more of a budget friendly option for sure.
Great, thank you. All right, so that looks like it was our only question for today. But we again, thank you so much everyone for joining us. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at any time, either at UCD, or you can reach out to Karina or Joanne as well. So again, thank you everyone for joining, and we will hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your lunch. Bye-bye.
Bye.